For early access plus exclusive content, facilitated discussions, live one-on-one Q&As, and more, become a patron at patreon.com/BrucePoinsett. Welcome back to the Blacktastic Adventure. I'm your host, Bruce Poinsett. And on today's episode, I speak with Randal Wyatt. Randal is a philanthropist, hip-hop artist, and community activist in Portland, Oregon. As a native to the city, he has watched as various disparities and predatory practices have displaced and oppressed the Black and other non-white communities, and decided to prioritize finding ways to combat it. With inspiration from becoming a father as a teenager, he used hip-hop as a tool to provide opportunities for youth and put together events that helped our most vulnerable population. Those efforts progressed into professional positions as a counselor, mentor, and advocate for multiple mental health, judiciary, educational, and culturally specific organizations. His latest endeavor is Taking Ownership PDX, a reparations-based organization that raises money, uses volunteers, and other resources to provide free repairs for Black homeowners in an effort to fight gentrification. And with Randal, first time I interviewed him had to be about 9 years ago for a story for the Scanner called Hip Hop Crackdown. And at the time he's a front person for Speaker Minds as well. And it's funny to see as a person who's, involved, wears so many hats, is involved in so many things, but just everything he does, whether it's from the music to the community work and now with Taking Ownership PDX, everything he does is it's about empowering communities, about giving back. And it's really been great to see him this past year after launching Taking Ownership and watching just how, it's really exploded because, again, for someone who's involved in so many things, I feel like there are few people, deserve to have a win as much with something like this as he does. So we had a great conversation. Check it out. You wear a lot of hats, but I think that's been really, you started an organization recently, Taking Ownership PDX, that's really kind of like taken off. So can you talk about one, like the kind of what started Taking Ownership PDX and kind of like the work you all do?
Yes. So basically what happened, I built quite a name for myself here in the community for my philanthropy work. And through hip hop and through work with youth, people have kind of known me to be tapped into the Black community because I worked for culturally specific organizations like POIC. And, once the social climate changed, after George Floyd was murdered and white people started paying attention to the plight of African Americans and other non-whites, I had a lot of people reach out to me and ask how they could be allies or just support the Black community. And I said, you gotta share your resources. White people had the opportunity to benefit greatly from the exclusion of Black people and non-white people from economic opportunities. And they've been able to develop a substantial amount of wealth off of government handouts like donation land acts and, just a number of tax cuts and things like that. There's a number of things that have been so beneficial to the white community, particularly white heterosexual men and their wives. So I said, since, you've had that historical advantage and current advantage, share those resources, share your money. I took the route of home ownership, supporting Black homeowners, because I've just seen the displacement so rampant in this city. I grew up in Northeast Portland in the 90s. So I knew there was a concentrated Black community here. And I seen it, I lived in it. And it's not here anymore. So, I was pretty naive to the whole thing. I didn't even know there was still this many Black homeowners left, really, but they're sprinkled throughout this, the community. A lot of them are barely hanging on. I've learned quite a bit about gentrification and the origin of it and how it's taking place through my studies at PSU. So yeah, why don't we find a way to to help these homeowners improve their homes or keep them dry, safe, and warm, and advocate and, you know, fend off predatory lenders and developers and people that are trying to take their homes for crumbs so they can knock them down and build something else there, put a new seasons there or something, you know, I don't know. And you know, it took off, you know. I found one house. The woman reached out. She actually happened to be a fan of Speaker Minds, been to a few shows, saw my posts with my ideas, and she was like, I can definitely use some help. You know, I'm newly, I've been on disability and I just can't keep up with the repairs. So you know, me and my good friend went out there. He's a contractor, and we went through, looked at all the things that needed to be done, and then I made a post about it and was like, all right, who has resources to help this woman? And people started sending me money. You know, a lot of people were like, I don't know how to swing a hammer or anything. I don't know how to, you know, do these things, but here's money so you can buy supplies or whatever. And by the end of the week, I have thousands of dollars in my Venmo.
Wow.
Yeah, thousands, like close to 10,000. So I start allocating that towards repairing this house. And then from there, I found another house and then another house, and word just got out. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the news, and everybody wants to interview me. And I have this platform that's, you know, pretty much reparations in the form of free repairs for Black homeowners and business owners.
Yeah, that's what's up. You know,
Yeah,
it's interesting with you know, with repairs in particular, just because, you know, as someone like you lived through it, you know, grew up in a Portland area, Portland sort of community, but maybe people outside may not be familiar with you know, just like the history of using quote unquote blight just to like displace people from their homes or get people out of their homes. So like, and I honestly, I, you know, grew up in Lake Oswego. I only learned sort of like the real details of it recently, as far as like even stuff as simple as, you know, what was it, like windows? It could be, you know, having a clawfoot tub, which is weird to me because I know that's like considered, you know, like an antique and actually
right.
valuable in things, but people back in the day would use that as like, oh, you have that, that's means
Oh
for, you
yeah,
know, taking your home. So the fact that you're doing this, like, again, with repairs is, you know, it's really powerful. I think it's one of those things that, you know, because in this moment, in this social climate, people focus on Black death. Like that's the conversation, but just like, it's this everyday stuff that is so important. So, you know, I just want to, you know, salute the work you're doing
yeah,
with that.
especially with thank you. And you know, a lot of the homeowners left are elderly, you know, so they're not, you know, they don't have the capability to do a lot of repairs either. They're very vulnerable population when it comes to predatory lenders and developers, and you know, especially with the amount of equity that their homes have built over the years being in Portland. You know, some
Mm-hmm.
people come in and sometimes it's even their own family. You know, so yeah, doing these repairs is huge. And you know, on the topic of blight, like you were saying, yeah, it's definitely when they were trying to build, or when they were building Emmanuel Hospital here in the Albina neighborhood, that they were using that nonstop. You know, oh yeah, we're just gonna take your house because, like you said, like the clawfoot tubs, but it was really because of agenda, building I-5, the Memorial
Mm-hmm.
Coliseum, things like that. But nowadays, you know, in the current gentrification wave, a lot of it has to do with cosmetics. So now, you know, a bunch of white people are moving into these neighborhoods that were historically Black. They might have a few Black neighbors left. Maybe those Black neighbors aren't keeping up with their paint job, or their garage doors not, you know, looking perfect, and they'll call the city on them. The city will come out and put fines and liens on the homes, and then that just adds to the financial stress. And then the predatory developers come in and they lowball and offer us, you know, but they offer a big chunk of change, and then they sell it. You know, that's how they're getting houses. That's a lot of the process of the displacement these days.
Again, I'm talking about just like sort of this small, some of these things that people don't think about, just doing like home repairs and whatnot. But, you know, can you just talk a little bit more about just like, because you started this last year and it's kind of like really is blown up. Can you just talk about you know, the reception you got with this.
Oh yeah, I started it last June, so we're coming up on our 1 year, which is amazing. The feedback I've gotten has been just amazing, man. Honestly, like primarily like the feedback I love the most is from the actual homeowners that we're helping. It's almost they treat me like I'm a savior or something. It's just when it's really a community effort. So I'm really, I always want to make sure that people understand it's not just me. I was happy that I was able to found a platform to do this, but the community has showed up, man. We've been able to raise like $300,000 or over $300,000 in the time we've been doing this. But the reception has been amazing. We've been getting great publicity. This is huge for me because I was struggling with the marches, man, because like I have really bad anxiety. I have a generalized anxiety disorder, and being in close like situations where I feel trapped makes me very anxious, especially with a bunch of people around.
Mm.
So I really wanted to contribute I've been contributing to the Black community, but during this time when we actually have white people paying attention and wanting to support, I was like, I gotta figure out a way to take advantage of this and really utilize this for this Black community. So yeah, it's huge, and to be able to do something so rewarding and effective, and get the response that I've gotten, it's been amazing, man. Yeah, it's honestly beyond it's beyond anything I could imagine what people are saying.
That's great. And, obviously this is not, your first project. You've been doing a lot of this work, I know you have like a background, especially working with young people. Can you talk a little bit about that for those who, may not be familiar with just like you've done like Measure 11 campaigns, working, rhythm and poetry workshops, like being a mentor. Can you talk about that and just why? Because, just me personally, I think probably some of the most important stuff we can do is working, with young people. However, it's not something everyone can do, but if we have that ability, I think it's probably some of the most important work we do. So yeah, can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I I decided very early in life. I became a father very early in life. I was 19 when my sons were born, and I knew early, like, in order to do my part in providing a healthier environment for my sons, it's not just about getting the most, making the most money I can make to provide for my family, my immediate family, and making sure that they're good. I knew that it was going to be, you have to be in the community. You have to give back to the community. You got to make the community healthier. My kids are going to be out in the community. I'm going to be out there, and plus I just care about people. That's I'm just always who I've been. But so yeah, I started out with, through hip hop, which is my passion. I started doing like collaborating with Portland Parks and Rec and Boys and Girls Club, and we would do talent shows and just like just give kids opportunities to rap or hear local rappers. We would do performances at the Teen Swims and stuff like that, and that really got my name buzzing in the community as somebody. And I did a lot of uh, fundraisers and just charity concerts and benefit concerts and things like that. So that got my name buzzing in the community as a person who gives back and a rapper that cares about community. And through that, I decided to get out of, I was delivering appliances at the time. That was my full-time job. I was like, I want to do this type of stuff full-time. So ended up getting a job as a residential treatment counselor at a Salvation Army, working with teenage girls, and a lot of them were sexually trafficked. So started with that snowballed into working with in mental health. And then I decided I'm going to take some of the skills I've learned from mental health and then start working with the Latino population, which I did through Latino Network. And with that, I was doing groups or just, taking them out to experience different stuff, some hip hop oriented stuff. Then I moved on to PYC, which is culturally specific to African Americans. And that's where I was helping provide resources to teen boys that were on probation so they can to help them transition off probation. And that's where I learned a lot about Measure 11, because I was actually doing workshops with Cool Nuts at the Donald D. Long Center. And I learned there, when we were working with Measure 11, kids that were there on Measure 11, that none of them knew what Measure 11 was before they got convicted of it. So that's when I was like, there's a real strong disconnect in our community. Like, they are not teaching our kids that this is something that can literally ruin their entire teenage years or even more. The lowest amount of time you get for Measure 11 is 5 years, 7 months. So if you catch a case at 15, and your whole teenage life is gone. So that's what we did that campaign to do reform, which there has been some reform on that. But yeah, that's what I was doing before this was. And then I worked at Portland Youth Builders as a student advocate, where I was basically just helping find resources and helping them overcome personal barriers so they can be successful in the program. And that's pretty much what I've been, doing with youth, is just providing resources and helping them, get to that next step or reach goals that they want to accomplish.
And I also imagine, just years of that has probably just provided, invaluable lessons as far as like we talk about taking ownership blowing up, but I always like to think that all this stuff is kind of like part of the puzzle and builds that foundation, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I learned so much through all that. Countless trainings, working with the populations actually firsthand and seeing what they actually need, like what is really impacting these communities, firsthand. That's huge. Because to be honest, it was a lot of times you'd get some wins, but you took a lot of losses in that work. There's a lot of, especially working with that population, you experience a lot of recidivism, and you'd be like, how am I even helping, And then you learn, what I've been doing this long enough, I've had enough youth that I work with now grow up to become men or women, and they will reach out to me and be like, hey, that stuff you used to tell me back when I was 14, it stuck with me. I still think about it today. That's huge to hear. Because it doesn't always resonate right away. That's what I'm learning. Plant seeds and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely laid the groundwork. This seems like an overnight success, but I've been at this for a long time.
Yeah. And, kind of started this topic talking about just part of that motivation coming from being a father, and, just kind of pivoting to the music. Like, I know you just released the new album, 16. I know that name is partly, or is it your 16th year recording, 16, one of your sons just turned 16, right?
Both of them, they're twins.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we just talk about, I want to talk about the new project, and I kind of want to talk about, there's a lot of like music stuff, but yeah, can you just talk about the new project?
Yeah, so I just wanted to. I've been sitting on some music for a while. I put out a few singles that are on the record that over the last 3 or 4 years, but I decided I just was time to put out a record, and I had 16 tracks, and I was like, my kids are gonna be 16, and then I did the math. I was like, I started playing shows when I found out I was gonna be a father. So I've been playing shows for 16 years, taking music serious for 16 years. And so I was like, I have to do this. This just seems right. And I don't know, I talk about my kids a lot in the music. And I just, I really wanted to just get this music out and have a clean slate so I can get started on some new stuff, because I feel like I've reached a new level in my life. So I just wanted to get this music out. I'm really proud of the music on this album too. I think it really reflects who I am in a lot of ways. Back in the day, I used to be more of a political rapper, but now I'm more of a social commentator, especially because I'm getting my degree in social science and minor in sociology and Black studies. So there's a lot of, commentating on society and just relationships. That's been a big area of work I've been on is, you know, my last job was I was always doing relationship building workshops and things like that. So yeah, that's you know, talks about my anxiety. It's all over the place. Dating in your 30s, stuff like that. Yeah, I think it's a well-rounded album. All kinds of different sounds. There's boom bap, East Coast hip hop, which is my favorite kind of hip hop, and then there's a couple West Coast joints. There's some funky stuff. There's yeah, it's all over the place, man. I love that, and that's how I like. That's how I want to do it. If you've heard Speaker Minds, you know Speaker Minds is a hodgepodge of sounds, and then my solo stuff is a whole different sound. I just like to be all over the place. So I think the album embodies that.
You know, you talk about getting serious 16 years ago, but as far as like what kind of just got you into music initially, and like what sparked your interest?
I've been into music since I was a little kid, and I've always had this obsession with learning lyrics. So even when I was like 5, I was reciting Slick Rick lyrics and stuff, and like sitting there like going over the album or going over whatever song I really like multiple times just so I can learn a verse that I really like. Saying words that I should not have been saying at 5 years old. But I always loved rapping. I don't know, it just was something that spoke to me. I loved beatboxing, and it's just, you know, I grew up in a house full of hip hop. I had 2 older brothers. One is significantly older than me. One of them is 8 years older than me. So he was, you know, in high school, middle school during the golden era. So he was bringing home East Coast stuff, Tribe Called Quest, Pete Rock, Alcoholics, all that stuff. So I was hearing that coming out of his room. He was putting me onto that. Then I have a brother that's 2 years older than me that was more into the West Coast hip hop. So there's like an East Coast West Coast battle in my own home, and I was getting pulled both ways. I was big in the West Coast gangster rap, Bay Area stuff when I was younger, and yeah, and then I just always been into it. But when I was 14, my good friend figured out how to take a headphone and plug it into his boombox, and somehow we could record through the headphone and onto cassette. So we put on the Rapper's Delight instrumental. He put the headphone on a hockey stick, and it was just sitting in a bucket. And we would all take turns rapping and listening to ourselves back on it. And that's when I knew I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. You know, I love rapping, and it's such a, and one thing I'm learning, especially during this pandemic, how important it is to me as an outlet, as a therapeutic outlet. Getting my thoughts down on paper is so big. I just can even think of recently, I had some stuff really bothering me for a long time. And I finally put it on, I think I even made a Facebook post about it recently, just a vulnerable Facebook post. I like to do those from time to time. And I immediately felt better, immediately. So that's something I realized, it got me through a lot of hard times.
Yeah, you touched on, you know, Speaker Minds. Obviously, you've been making, you know, quite a name as well as like the group and, you know, individually from that over the years. But, you know, for, you know, those who don't know, can you just describe, it's like, I feel like as someone who's gone to some of the shows, you know, I know we initially, like first time I interviewed you was Scanner, like I want to say like 9 years ago on that. But you know, I feel like Speaker Minds is just like, it's an experience, you know, to see you all. So you just like, can you describe like the band and then like kind of like what it's like to go to a Speaker Minds show?
Yeah, I feel I can't even remember. It's been so long. No, the band, you know, we started about 10 years ago, and I think what makes the sound that we have had is the eclectic background, musical backgrounds, right? So, you know, my drummers have always been like rock and roll drummers. My bass players have actually have had rock backgrounds as well. My current bass player is a big, you know, really influenced by funk too, because you know he is just naturally, but he also wants, that's the direction we want to go. I'm hip hop to the max, you know, with a lot of R&B in me. I like, because I like R&B melodies, and uh, Adrian Adele, soul singer, powerful singer. church pipes, and then my guitarist has a rock, kind of a rock and roll background, but he can play anything. So it's just been this really eclectic sound that came together and over a hip hop foundation. And so I would say the shows are definitely upbeat, high energy. We're getting older, so it's getting a little harder to maintain that high energy. The music's still there and high energy, but I'm not jumping around like I used to when I was younger. It's a little harder to do that stuff. But yeah, that's the show. It's high energy. It goes kind of all over the place. Like one song might be super funky, one might be groovy, the next one might have a lot of rock and roll influence. It might be that all in one song, you know. We like to do that. Theatrics, we like to act a fool on stage. A lot of banter back and forth, especially between me and Adrian. Oh, and I left out Desmond. Desmond got like more of a jazzy background and stuff like that. He's on the keyboards, and he's also a poet and things like that. So we add poetry. We're just kind of all over the place. We don't really put a box on our sound. But yeah, I think that we're also evolving. So who knows what Speaker Mind is going to sound like out of this pandemic?
Yeah. When was the last time you were even able to perform?
Oh man, our last performance was, I think, in December of 2019.
Man.
Mm-hmm. We haven't rehearsed. Oh no, I take that back. We performed in Desmond's front yard last July 25th, and that was a lot of fun. So
I gotta imagine.
Yeah,
you gotta be like jonesing just to get back on stage.
Yeah, we have a recorded session on the 29th that we're getting ready for. We have venues reaching out, booking us for the fall because they're, in the fall they're expecting the venues to open back up. So it's getting exciting to get back to it. And my life should be a lot more chill now, being that I'll be done with school in June, and I run my own organization now. So it's really beautiful being your own boss, let me tell you.
I feel that. Speaking of which, not just like musically, but I know even with Speaking Minds, you just wear a bunch of hats as far as like management, booking. Can you talk about that for people who kind of like, may not be thinking about, they see the artist on stage and they think it's just that, but like I imagine just like a lot goes into just the whole, just the nuts and bolts of making it work.
Oh yeah. I'm the one that's, answering the emails and working out the pay, and I would love to delegate that work, and I've tried. It's just tough to, I kind of struggle with trusting that in that realm, but I think that's the next step, is delegating a lot of that manager work. But answering countless, emails and discussing with promoters, and the promotion part, which can be tedious. As I've slid into your DMs to tell you about the album. Like, that's the type of stuff that it takes nowadays. Is like very tedious. Reaching out to your fan base, keeping your fan base engaged, making sure they know that your music is out, because I don't trust social media with pushing your posts. And there's actually been a few articles I read about that where they choose who sees your stuff. So I go straight to the people. But yeah, it's tough. It's a lot of work, and the touring is a lot of work too. I think people think, oh, you're just traveling around, but driving long distances, staying up late, having to make sure you get the proper pay, keeping your bandmates happy. Yeah, it's a lot of work, man. It's stressful. It can be stressful, but the being on stage and rocking crowds and seeing people dance and knowing that your art is helping people and helping yourself, it's worth it.
Yeah, I imagine, like, again, when we back in I'll say 2012, we are doing that interview for the Scanner. I feel like some of that kind of like came out. We were talking, for those who don't know, the interview was kind of about like police and their relationship with Portland hip hop. But I didn't realize that at the time that you kind of put me on to like just some of that nuts and bolts stuff as far as like even the fact that it affects, you know, like if you're trying to do a show, you know, you got these larger out of town artists coming in, just that, you know, that police presence and that kind of like stigmatization, you know, that's affecting artists' ability to like get their names out, to build relationships with, you know, these national platforms, and just this like, again, this small stuff that you don't think about, but that goes into, is very much integral to like the business of it. So kind of similar to that though, like, you know, obviously there's been a number of other stories, you know, the Blue Monk incident, obviously, you know, probably one of the bigger ones, but I was curious, like, as far as like how things have kind of evolved, or if they've evolved at all, like, I guess, do you have any thoughts as far as like that relationship with like Portland police and like the hip hop community, and like if it's changed at all, or, you know, yeah, if things have evolved since sort of both well, obviously like 2012, but then also just these last few years, really.
You know, I'm I'm not 100% sure how it's changed. I think it's hard because my style of music has never really gotten condemned much. I mean, I've been shut down before, like especially at like the Alberta Street Fair and stuff for being too loud or for too many people congregating. Like that's what you mean. Like when you say that, like the business side, we're sitting there on you know, at a huge festival in Alberta. We got people really like really engaged with us. We have the ability to potentially sell merchandise, gain new fans, and then yeah, the police come and shut it down. Um, while all these other rock bands are just going crazy, you know, and they get to keep going. So
Mm,
I have experienced it somewhat, but I can't say that it's affected my ability to continue to play shows continuously. We've always been able to be booked. I think maybe it's the eclectic nature of Speaker Minds that's been able to do that. It could be that my music is more positive and stuff, but I know like some of the people that are doing, you know, the more what they would call it, gangster rap or whatever. Um, I know they've lost a lot of venues that will take that in. I know that the insurance to cover those shows is more expensive, which discourages promoters from or bookers from even booking those acts. Um, so, but it's hard. I can't say that I know too much, and it's been so long now. I wonder. I'm really curious what it's going to look like now with the with the social climate, what it is, how that's going to look, how they're going to police. So, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, like I haven't. I think I've never been like a huge showgoer person. I think, you know, when I was covering stuff was probably like the biggest time, but, you know, going to, I didn't really like think about it. I mean, always thought about, you know, obviously how just Black art is treated, but like as far as like seeing the difference, like going to like a few rock shows, going to like a friend who was doing stand up comedy for a while, and just going to that and going to, you know, seeing the same stuff that people, you know, that the official complaints are made about, as far as like, oh, people are parking in the neighborhood, or people are doing like, it's all the same stuff. A lot of these white places more so, honestly.
Hmm.
But, you know, it's just like, and that really like highlights it, because, you know, as you know, it's like a booker and doing all this, it's like you get like the official excuses and like reasons and like weird dress code stuff and whatnot, but then you see it at just how it plays out. So
Yeah, the dress code stuff is wild. That's totally targeting to the max. You know, they were 100% were targeting, and I remember all that. You know, like can't wear your hat backwards, can't wear. Yeah, that's pretty annoying. And one thing I did notice is a lot of like smaller venues popping up too. So that, you know, I don't know if they've lasted, but to provide those opportunities, I've known like quite a few small venues that popped up kind of more further east, that some of these artists, you know, because a lot of those places downtown or bigger venues will just no longer book particular rappers, you know. or they have these dress codes, like you're saying, that make you have to dress like white people. That's that's what it really is. I mean, you can't wear anything that looks too urban, anything hip hop culture related. It won't fly. And there's been a couple people that have won some pretty good lawsuits because of it, though.
Right.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's going to be, it's going to be these venues' loss, right?
Yep. Well, I mean, maybe because it's hard to say because this city is only getting whiter, and
True.
I don't know, so like they're not, I don't think they're losing too much by staying with indie rock or whatever else they're doing. I think they're getting, that's the hard part is, about this city in particular is like we don't have a large black population. We don't have a large hip hop scene either. Um, at least not local. I mean, there's a lot of people that are big into hip hop here. There's a lot of hip hop heads, but they're more like for the national scene or the international scene. So I don't know. I don't know if they're hurting. That's the hard part with hip hop here.
Fair. I'll switch it up though. Like as far as, I guess, we talk about like new kind of like little smaller venues popping up. And so like the energy around some of that, but like in terms of like what might be giving you optimism about the scene right now, I don't know, is there anything that is yes, just like inspiring, lifting your spirits,
Yeah.
having you just talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the talent here, and I think like there's a lot of talent, and I've traveled and had openers in different states and cities and stuff, and Portland is really, really got some talent, like above most places that I've seen. Um, that's always inspiring, and I think that's what pushes. I think that's why we keep getting better is because we have that talent. So we want to push ourselves to be up there with these talented people. The fact that I think we're a very slept on region. We don't get a whole lot of exposure, I should say. Um, and during this pandemic, just seeing like some of the performances that's been put together at the parks and stuff has been really unifying. Artists that may not normally play together or support each other have been supporting each other in the name of BLM or and at the protests and things like that. So that's been very. I'm really hoping that continues out of the pandemic, and we continue to support each other like that, go to each other's shows, and build with each other, and really have like a tight community where we're trying to boost each other and give each other opportunities.
I mean, and I just started reading Can't Stop, Won't Stop finally, history of the hip hop generation and everything. And it's been, I don't know, it's got my like, the synapses firing just because we spend, just in the social climate, we're spending a bunch of time in these like public square spaces and whatnot. And just, again, just gets me thinking like, man, what we could do with some of these, whether it's obviously like Pioneer Square, Portland, and everything, but like even in places like Lake Oswego, I'm seeing like just a little bit of it and seeing, people just coming in through even just like leading protests and whatnot, or also a lot of artists and just still getting that response and saying, there's some possibilities here. So like I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. Obviously, it comes with a healthy sense of skepticism, knowing, Portland, knowing Oregon. But I don't know, like I said, I try and keep myself as optimistic as I can be.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm hoping so. I hope that there's more support and more opportunities and more venues that will book hip hop here and expose us and get us in the papers and things like that. We were on the top 5 for Willamette Week's best bands, and it was all rock groups. So that's the thing. That's what Portland is. It's very white.
Yeah. you know, kind of, we talked about just like booking different shows, and I say you all speaker minds have been, I mean, obviously like around the region, around the country, but like I was sure, like, do y'all have any like just doing stuff, whether it's in like Eastern Oregon or just some of these spaces where people might not think, wait, they do hip hop shows out there? Like, I was sure, like, do any like just good stories? Do you have any like good stories that have come from some of these different touring spaces?
Yeah, we've had some interesting tours. We were about 3 years ago. We went on about a 2-week tour, and it was very poorly managed. I'll just say that. I didn't book it. I'll just say that it was poorly managed. And this is one of those situations where I try to delegate the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, we drove 12 hours to Twin Falls, Idaho. You wouldn't really think that that would be a place of hip hop. We get there, we see security guards with white supremacist tattoos. It looks like a country bar, I guess, but based on I guess we got there too late and weren't even able to play. Yes, stuff like that happens on tours. You drive 11 hours, you get there. They said, "Oh, you didn't get here on time." We were told that we were getting there for sound check, but we were supposed to be there like 4 hours earlier. The person managing the tour didn't tell us, and so we just drove 11 hours to stay at a Motel 6 in Twin Falls, Idaho. And I will never go back to Twin Falls, Idaho. Let me tell you that. It was, yeah, that's just not a town for non-white people. I'll just say that. But we also found, a small town in central California coast called Morro Bay, right near San Luis Obispo, which has a great fan base, great place. Like I'm considering moving there one day. It's just like so beautiful. The people are excellent. We have a great fan base out there. I'm trying to think like if there's any cool particular stories that like anything that's happened. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, Spokane's a great place. We go there a lot.
Are there any spots in Oregon that surprise you?
Oregon, where do we go in Oregon? I don't know. I mean, Hood River, we play Hood River a lot. Love Hood River. We go down to Bend. Bend is awesome. Love Bend. I think people know Bend is awesome though. Ashland's a great place. I can't say we go to too many really like little small towns though. With our music and the shit we say in our music, we gotta be careful what environments we put ourselves in. It's very, our music is very pro black, and like we talk a lot of shit about capitalism and white supremacy and things like that. So we got to be careful where we're at. I think Twin Falls would have been, I think the universe saved us by not letting us perform in Twin Falls, Idaho, because who knows, people might have followed us to that Motel 6 afterwards. That was a wild place, man. We found, yeah, but in Oregon, I can't think of any places that we play that people may not know about. We play pretty like mainstream, college towns, Corvallis, Eugene, Ashland. Yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah. Randal Wyatt, thanks again. Taking ownership, speaker minds, prolific artists. Thank you again for your time. I'm gonna sign off. So.
Right on, man. My pleasure.